5 o'clock. Open meeting to order. Ask everybody to silence your cell phones if you haven't done so already. Roll call the airport board. I checked off. We've got Tim, we've got Dale, Sandra, Larry, yours truly, Steve, and Mike. Ross Schauhauer is excused. I believe he has a planning and zoning commission meeting tonight, and I don't know about Brian Cleary. Hey, Walt. I'd like to introduce a new member of the board, Sandra White, from the Hayden City Council. And Sandra, would you like to tell us a little bit about yourself?
Well, sure. I've been on the Hayden City Council in my 3rd year now. I've lived here in Hayden for 10 years. I'm probably the closest council member to the airport. I just live over by the Dairy Queen there. So I don't know how to fly, but I love to fly.
Right.
And I've always been interested in the airport and the workings here, and I have come and participated in some of the meetings in the past. So I'm very happy to be here.
Most of us here are airport geeks or pilots, and we're always a resource available for any questions you have. So feel free to approach anybody if you need any information. Glad to help.
Thank you.
Rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. Everybody can move cover and call for a moment of silence in memory of 9/11. Would you use the pledge? Pledge
Allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
And item 3 on the agenda, we'll call for any conflicts of interest from anybody on the board who want to acknowledge your advice. As usual, nobody has any. So item 4, changes to the agenda. Chairman, I don't have any. Item 5, we'll move to our first session of public comment. We ask anybody that wants to make a comment. Terry, do you still want them to come forward so that you can?
Please, that's very
We-
helpful.
We record these meetings so that Carrie can then do the minutes, and when she has to hear voices from the back, sometimes they don't come through real well. So we always ask people to come up, identify yourself, and do your comments here so that they're clearly heard in the microphone. So if anybody would like to step forward with a public comment, now it's time to do it. Okay. Item 6, for the board to approve minutes of the previous meeting from August 14th, 2024.
I make a motion. I'll second it.
All in favor of approving minutes of the previous meeting, say aye.
Aye.
Unanimous. Number 7, moving on to staff reports. And we'll hear from Corey on what's been happening with our door for the last month. All right, you're here.
Okay, Corey Sigford with Ardura for ongoing project reports. The first 3 projects that we've been working on continually since last year, the snow removal equipment building, the runway 624 and taxiway B4 construction, and taxiway and pavement maintenance projects. Those 3 we are still continually working on to close out. And either waiting for the FAA review and approval of our reports, or waiting for the contractor to finish with his last bits of payment or paperwork to submit to us. We're all ready on all 3 of them to be closed out once these little bits of paperwork get completed. The taxiway C extension to runway 6 Mauser project, the county and the airport received they've received 2 grants to fund that, and it funds about 90% of the project. The next grant will be funded next year for the remaining 10%. And so we're working with the contractor and getting the construction agreement. The agreement's at the contractor, and he's getting all of his performance and payment bonds sent back to us. So we will be looking to do the first section of that project beginning around the first week of October. It's a mass grading, and the only thing that would be impacted is the ILS for, I think it's 17 days, 19 days. Right at the beginning of October is what we're thinking.
Is it gonna be totally shut down, or is it gonna be like a precision there?
The ILS will likely totally shut down, so we do GPS somewhere.
The other project we've been working through is a turf landing area. We were contracted to do through preliminary design, which included 50% cost estimate. We hope to get that done over this next month and get a submittal to the airport. We did have a meeting with the FAA and flight standards, and we will have a follow-up meeting with them for siting of that turf runway and getting a review basically of through flight standards for the location and that sort of thing. Then, we have a new project, and that would be the ARF equipment procurement project. We received a scope and fee that was approved through the FAA and on August 6th. So the county or the airport and I have been working to start getting the list of items that they want with their ARF vehicle and getting it moving forward with design report and specifications so we can publicly bid it. Then the last project is the Aegis survey update, and I've been working with Kim on that, and we got it all submitted, so she has all of the data on her, the sewer survey, so she has it on her online mapping system. So, any questions?
Yeah, jumping back to the turf runway, what's exactly is the FAA's role in this? Do they have thumbs up or down on whether we can do that or not, or is it just basically taking our design and saying, well, you need to make these modifications?
There are certain divisions that will approve it, certain divisions just weigh in on it. So this was essentially the first roundtable meeting with about 8 FAA personnel, from flight standards to compliance to planning. Some of them will just offer their opinions, and the others will approve it essentially to be on the ALP marked out on there. So they know we want to do it now. They know what our design looks like. Now it's a matter of just answering. They have about 200 questions we have to work through on how we're going to operate it, simultaneous operations, hours of operation, all that stuff. So once they have that, well, essentially it's a risk analysis that they do. We'll just grade it on, is it, risky, non-risky, for flight standards.
Do you think there's any likelihood that they might reject it?
I don't believe so. Not with, basically, there's 3 other airports in our region that operate a similar surface with Phelps Field, Sun Valley, Triggs has the exact same thing. So it's just a matter of going through the motions and getting it approved. And it's not on our 139 surfaces, which is huge. It being on our secondary runway, it's going to help quite a bit.
Anything else? Well, I guess we'll move on to your.
Absolutely. Update on our temporary control tower. We are T-minus a few minutes from being able to finally be in it. All the stairs are constructed up to it. The container, the boxes themselves where the cab is in the break room, that is all completely finished. It's drywalled, carpeted, painted, everything they're ready to move in. All the electrical's been hooked up on the outside as far as connecting it to the ARF station. What we're waiting on right now is for Cooper Fab to finish the catwalks. Once you get up the stairs, the catwalks actually get over to the cab. Those are supposed to be finished by the end of this week, and then likely be out early next week for that actually set. So we're hoping by the end of next week, you're able to completely mock up and be up in them and actually turn the switch on. So just speaking, as far as getting the crew moved out of the trailer and into it and actually operating in it, I would say over the next couple of weeks, likely they'll be fully established in it their last month of them being here this year. So everything else is going pretty well, just certain contractor lead times and everything delayed it.
They need a occupancy permit.
There's not necessarily an occupancy permit. It is permitted through the county essentially as a temporary commercial structure. It's not even a building. It's not even considered a building. So it alleviates a lot of the like need for ADA and all that kind of stuff to be in it, you know, fire sprinkler and stuff like that. So it definitely helped quite a bit.
Question, would it be possible to give a grand tour after it's ready to
Oh,
go,
absolutely.
generally, instead of just individuals asking, can we see what it looks like?
Yeah.
Or maybe for the advisory board, commissioners and so on.
Absolutely. We can hold a remote advisory board meeting from the tower. Outside the tower, the crew's been pretty hard at painting, trying to get everything south of 624 painted. The small runway is completely finished now, repaint all the lead-in lines, all the white, the enhancements on the small runway. They're off to working on all the yellow center line striping for the taxi lanes. I think yesterday they got Delta 1 through 5, just straight line stuff, all finished. Then you just have to come back in to walk behind and do all that kind of stuff. So now we're kind of juggling with winter. We're kind of losing our window to be able to paint at nighttime, just with the temperatures coming down. So with the rain this week and the cooler temperatures, we're just going to kind of work in between the storms as the rest of the season plays out and just finish out all the yellow taxi lane stuff. One of the big things that we've been working on, this is kind of circling back to something we talked about a year ago, was our gate operating system. We're finally to the point of rolling out that new logic system that will get rid of the way the gates currently operate, where they communicate to the R station via the old links. All that's going to go away. We have our contracts all signed with Verkada, so this is going to be a full, essentially the airport will have its own 5G network just for the airport. All the gates communicate via 5G to one server. It's a total cloud-based software. There'll be new card readers at the gates. Essentially, each tenant will be in control of their own access. So essentially, you'll be able to have an app on your phone that is your gate card, essentially. So if you have a delivery showing up from FedEx, you can actually text someone access to whatever gate you want. So you can go in there and say from 5 o'clock to 8 o'clock at night, this person, you know, has this link. They just hit the link and they just hold their phone up to the card reader and it'll open that gate during that time. So it alleviates having to have codes that pass around and everything. Kind of puts you in control. It also, one thing that I'm running through the CERT branch right now, I'm seeing if we can eliminate the need for actual physical gate cards. As a user holding that app, it actually has a virtual gate card. So you still come in and take the test and do your driver's license and stuff, but essentially you have a virtual badge. It would alleviate the need to even keep track of a badge. It's just on your phone now. We would still have the ability, if someone doesn't want to do that with their phone, that we can still print a standard badge and issue those, but it alleviate probably 500 badges being out there, just being able to use your phone in your app as far as operating the gates. So I think over the next few weeks, we'll start to see some of that equipment show up and roll out. So we'll kind of keep you guys updated on that.
Will the keypads disappear?
On certain gates, they will. So some of our main gates will still have keypad access, like ones that need to get to ramps. Obviously, someone flying in here is not going to download an app to go access their airplane and get there. So certain gates will still have keypad access, but for the most part, everything will be driven via the new card readers. Now, the system is extremely expandable to where we can add simple license plate cameras to the gates, where you can go under and Frank can give us his 3 license plates and they get put in his app under the system, and all he does is pull up his car. There's no chips or anything like that, no stickers you have to put on the car. It just sees that, yep, he's in the system, and it opens the gate. So it's a bunch of different ways we can configure it. Idaho Falls is probably one of the more local airports that uses their complete system. They've completely transferred to the Verkada system. So we can configure it a multitude of different ways. So, but the biggest thing is getting the reliability. We're not going to have these issues with gate communications going down and these guys having to chase opening gates for everyone. I mean, the nice thing is it being cloud-based, they can be in their truck. If we get a call saying, hey, I forgot my badge, or it's not working, or can you open this gate for someone, they don't actually have to physically come open the gate anymore. They can be anywhere on the airport and just hit a button and it opens the gate in that location. So
So will the license plate recognition cameras also be used for catching other infractions? People coming in?
Yeah, essentially it's just a normal like bullet camera that's put on the gate. It just.
But is that a wide enough angle that it'll catch
It can
the
sense a
actual
license
vehicle
plate.
type?
Yeah, it'll catch vehicle type. The system is, let's say that there's an infraction, someone has broken into a hangar off of Miles or something like that, and someone said it was a red vehicle that left, you can actually go in the system and type in red, and it will bring up all the red vehicles that access that gate through a certain time, or black sweatshirt, black clothing.
So how far back can you go as far as it just depends on the size of whatever recording capability?
Yep. So that'll be something kind of nice moving forward, not having to chase the gate issues that we've had over the last few years, and just simplifying the way we do it, not having to have a million cards issued and putting everyone back in control of having access to the airport, so.
Estimated completion?
What are we looking at, Anthony, for?
I did a site visit with the company that's gonna be doing, the subcontractors that doing the physical installation. Once they get the LTE network set up, it's gonna be based at the temp tower as well, just 'cause it's a good elevation vantage point. They're gonna be rolling through each of the gates. They're estimating most gates will take a couple hours, at most, unless there's any sort of, special circumstances, you know. Not every gate's the same here at the airport, but, probably weather depending a couple weeks' time until everything from start to finish is completed.
Yeah, so it'll be a nice new system. Initially, we're adding some just normal PTZ style cameras in the infield that'll be able to just look down the runways. Initially, we're not adding any of the cameras to the gates or buildings or anything like that yet. This could have the ability for us to have webcam access to certain cameras at the airport, which would be kind of nice to be able to log in and see conditions actually out on the runway and different sites, but.
Could you make them public?
I believe we can. There's certain aspects that we can open up on there, yeah. But it'll definitely be a welcome change to our current system. So we'll be able to expand it. This will be a system that you can actually build on and continue to expand as the airport expands well into the future. I mean, this is not just a 5-year fix. This is moving forward. So this will be something pretty welcome.
So does Anthony get to relieve himself from that octopus that's over there?
Absolutely.
Do you have any involvement in the ongoing maintenance, or is it all subcontracted out?
So obviously there's gonna be a warranty period, I think, just for installation. Don't quote me, 'cause it's been a while since I looked at it, but about 3 years just for installation stuff. All the hardware itself, from Verkada's warranty for 10 years, which by that point in time is probably gonna be obsolete the way technology is progressing. So in reality, the main maintenance we're gonna be doing is just the physical maintenance on the gates, because, you know, half the time when the gate isn't opening for someone, a belt broke, it's iced up, stuff like that. So it'll definitely save us on labor now.
That's all I have. Otherwise, is there any questions you guys might have?
You know, one question I have, of course, the new tower is gonna open up just in time for these guys to go away just about in October. What do you do with that thing over the winter? How do you store that? The radio equipment and everything in it, I mean, it's.
The radio equipment we can pull out of it. It's fully climate controlled, so we'll just put it in kind of a hibernation mode, you know, make it to where it's not freezing it up there, just keep the heat, it's fully heated and air conditioned, so just like any other building, we'll just inspect it every now and again, make sure everything's good. There's no water or anything plumbing in there, so we'll just keep, probably pull the radio heads out of it, store them indoors somewhere else, but just get it ready for next year.
And then we will open it back up on May 1st, right?
So are you utilizing any of the space within the containers other than the top cap?
Yep, just for storage, dry storage and all this.
That's quite a bit of storage.
It is, yeah.
No backward for windstorm anyway. Okay, well, thank you, Gaston.
No.
We're on to item 8, Portland Airport Association update.
Yeah, Frank, I'd like to put the update, push that forward to the agenda item.
Okay. We'll move on to item 9, business. First item of business is a subcommittee report. we talked.
Yeah, basically, we're just still organizing. I haven't met with Tim yet, and Ross is not here today, but we talked to Gaston yesterday, and we're gonna try to organize it through him, and probably do the meetings upstairs in his office. He has a couple other people involved in construction stuff that are gonna be set in, so.
Sure.
He's gonna just contact us via email.
We'll set a meeting date in the next couple days.
Yeah, I'm out of town, start tomorrow through Tuesday,
Okay.
and after that, which, for 3 days.
May I ask a question? May I ask a question? What's,
Oh,
what
what's up?
subcommittee is this?
It's a subcommittee we organized at the last meeting to look at options for development of the north end of the field, the north side of 624. Which you can see here is pretty sparsely developed. Tim's business is there. We have Stancraft. Is their primary terminal. There are some other things done up behind it. We have Electronics International has just built a new facility that they'll be moving into this fall. As you can see, we've got a lot of area available for development. What we wanted to do was, rather than let it just kind of haphazardly develop, a hangar here, a business there, but we thought, well, let's put a group together, and it's composed, members of the airport board, the airport administration, and we've got some folks outside of that who have an interest in aviation, to see what might be the most optimal uses for these different areas, where might we site. For example, we have people with larger jets that want to site hangars here. Where might be an appropriate place to do that? Where would there be some opportunities for more aviation related businesses like Electronics International to come in here? And according to what Gaston told me, they just kind of out of the blue called them up and said they want to move to Coeur d'Alene, and we feel like there's probably going to be some demand filtering out, especially larger urban areas, for relocating into Idaho, and specifically an airport like this. So we wanted to have some considerations to what might be done there. And of course, there's other users like the Forest Service and whatnot that possibility they may expand in this area. So we just wanted to say, okay, rather than just one at a time take and stick them here and there, let's try and do a coordinated effort, develop a vision for it, so that when these things start to happen, we kind of get everybody parked in a logical spot and develop the infrastructure accordingly. So yes,
Thank you.
just trying to see around the curves.
Yeah. that's great.
Recommendations that would come. Just the status of the northern parcels there. I remember there was like a funding issue that was, it was contingent upon obtaining the FAA funding. Is that something that's been put on hold for a while because
Yeah.
FAA, I can't remember what the conditions were, but it was a complication.
Essentially, the FAA does not acquire property unless there's an immediate use for it, essentially. They used to purchase property just for airport buffer zone or safety area. They now need a complete, study, like we would have to say, we're putting in the Forest Service here, this is exactly what it's gonna look like, this is the property we need, and then they'll just purchase that piece. So they, 10, 15 years ago, you would go up and say, hey, we'd like to do that whole 120 acres just for buffer zone, so we don't have houses building right up next to the airport, and they would do that, but it's a little bit different now.
Does this subcommittee and the planning that would come out of it help move toward that direction, or
Absolutely.
that information that's useful to convince FAA that they should provide the funding to obtain that parcel?
Correct, yep.
And as Gus and I discussed too, this would be something that has the opportunity to more or less be a permanent fixture as part of the advisory board coming into the master plan here in 18 months. This would segue into feeding into that. And thereafter, then it just kind of keeps everybody on top of what's coming at us, so that we don't get into a situation as we did in previous years. If you look at the way things have developed around this airport, especially on the Seasport side, it was kind of hodgepodge. But it was done that way because back in those days, there was not the demand and there was no sense that we needed to worry about that. Now that especially what we see now in the Coeur d'Alene, now that we have an idea of how development is going to impact us, we know there's going to be more of it. We just wanted to get out in front of it. It's not in a position where, for example, the advisory board members can, just like the advisory board can't dictate anything, but it's kind of coordinating with and assisting airport managers come up with ideas as to how we want to treat the property we have and what opportunities there might be. So,
So related to that north side, what's going on with the Ramsey Road extension? Because that's gonna,
I believe they're finishing up utilities, the sewer and water install from, I believe they're right at Miles right now, coming up Ramsey, headed to the north. I believe they're trying to get to Wyoming by winter with the sewer, and I think they're going out to bid for the actual pavement to start next spring. I think they're going out to bid this fall for that. So all the utilities have been put in basically from our North Ramsey gate all the way around to Lancaster as it stands.
so when that goes through, does that inhibit any kind of development over in that area?
Nope, not at all. That was all, our last master plan took into account the Ramsey bypass and even the Hutter bypass as far as future expansion, runway extensions, everything like that was predetermined with all that punching through there.
Okay, so we did have the other subcommittee that we mentioned last time on the rules and standards. You said we'd probably be moving forward, getting some movement on that pretty soon.
Yep, we're finalizing the final red line version to have out to you guys, I would think, in the next couple of weeks here.
Okay, great.
Yep.
Nice, thanks.
okay, Jim, I guess we'll move on to item B, proposal for a public meeting as suggested by you, and we can incorporate the Airport Association update with that.
For the record, Jim Walsh, board member on the Airport Association, and I'm here tonight to discuss some noise issues that on the July meeting, several residents under public comment expressed concerns of traffic noise all hours, and they did a pretty good job presenting their case. At that point, I was listening and say, we have a potential issue that's festering with residents of the community. That was in July. The August meeting, we had slight discussions here on how to address the noise. And in that meeting, there was several members of the panel here and several members sitting here, including myself, expressed some ideas. And they were coming from all different areas, and it got a little chaos in my opinion. And at the end of that meeting, I stood up and said, we need to have a meeting with key principals here at the airport and within the community to discuss this, and then eventually have a public meeting to present all the information and findings. So at that point, I felt I'll take it on and get the meeting together of all the principals. So last night at the association meeting, we brought it up and agreed that the best thing to do is contact several individuals, not only here, but in the community, get them together for a pre-meeting before a public meeting. And then we can discuss all our ideas and thoughts and maybe come up with a tentative plan that we could present to a public hearing. And then we could invite the community, the press, and get everybody together for a discussion type thing. But a little background on what's going on. It's called Part 150. And Part 150 is Airport Noise Compatibility Planning, and it came out in January of '85. And our last study here at Coeur d'Alene, spoke to Gaston, was in 2015, was the last noise compliance study. And that study, when they complete their study, they have two maps. One map is the current noise abatement area, and the second map is the potential noise abatement area. So at this point, I think we're mostly concerned with the potential noise abatement area, with the encroachment of all these developments, housing developments. And I think that would be good. This way, the realtors can present that to potential buyers, saying you're going to be in a noise abatement area. The decimal limit is 65 dBs, the compatibility planning is what that's based on. They start at 65 decibels. So anybody making more than 65 decibels is going to be raising the red flag. And so that's the base. For example, in Van Nuys, it's limited to 77 decibels. So that eliminated all the older Gulfstreams, all the older Learjets. So that's kind of a potential that could happen if we don't kind of present this and get it some kind of plan going. So my proposal is the individuals to get together, just some ideas, the airport management, obviously, the Tower Tech guys, advisory board, airport association, not so much the Coeur d'Alene Press at this point. Aircraft Flyers Association, a commissioner or two, and the police department helicopter support guys. As a group to get together prior to the public meeting, and maybe we could come up with some ideas. I think that would be a great thing. This way we can formulate some kind of a plan and agreement prior to that. The next thing, of course, would be to do an info dump on the community. The members that did present their issues didn't really understand that we can't close an airport down with too many airplanes. It's just not going to happen. It's open 24 hours a day, 7 days a week, and that's pretty much just the way it is. But the key for us right now is to work with these individuals or associations and kind of be airport friendly, operate airport friendly. There are airplanes, particularly 185s with 3-blade supersonic tip speed props that are way over 65 dBs, guaranteed. You got the Learjets, you got the older Gulfstreams. So we have the noise issues, and it is my intent to stay on this, work with you guys. I'm going to contact everybody, come up with a date. I'd rather meet in person rather than this Zoom and computer stuff. This way we can be all face to face and get something figured out. And then we can have a meeting like we had over the decoupling with a platform and some speakers, refreshments, and invite the community and give a presentation. So that's my thoughts on it. I do have some other ideas I don't want to talk about now. We can talk about it in our meeting. So that's my presentation.
I really appreciate Jim stepping up to this and trying to get out ahead of an issue. And we've got a lot of different people, a lot of different players with different ideas, and there's certainly things that we can do that will have a lesser impact than having new regulations or new requirements placed upon us without consideration. So thank you, Jim, for spearheading this, and I look forward to working with you.
Yeah, I didn't want it, the individuals that were here had really concerns, and I didn't want those concerns to not be addressed in a formal manner. So I think that's.
I think even Brian had expressed some concerns earlier, and I think it'd be good to get your input on this, Brian.
I was gonna add something. First of all, thank you for such a good presentation, and also your advanced thinking on this. If you're looking for somebody from the board and that's appropriate to participate, I'd be interested. This is an issue that definitely, is something in my wheelhouse. I live within proximity, and I hear the planes a lot.
Hayden View has been a particular source of complaints.
Is it?
For people flying inappropriately low over Hayden View. Well, that was at the meeting in July. We had several residents talking.
In your area.
Yeah, so I would.
So we are in the process of identifying a handful of airplanes that seem to be on a regular basis heading that way. So we'd like to talk to those guys and maybe come up with a different plan or friendlier neighborly type situations.
some voluntary things that we could do right now as a pilot group. But in addition to that, while we've got the tower and the ability to route differently than what the standard patterns are here, there's some mitigation things that are possible, at least while they're here, and maybe could even be permanently adopted. But right now, that's what we're thinking.
So I would just say that for Longitude, just if you wanted myself to
Sure.
participate, I have to do it.
Now, another heads up, Tower Tech has been diverting traffic on the north side. I got to get a guess.
Yeah, basically for the past week and a half here, they have been probably 80 to 85% of the time moving traffic for the small runway to the west and then moving 64 traffic to the north. So completely flipping the traffic pattern. Most of it is all the flight school traffic they're doing with. If they're doing nonstop touch and goes, they're making a fly right traffic for 2-0, left traffic for 2. And same for the big runway. And I can tell you that the phone hasn't rang in a week and a half, knock on wood, but it has had an effect. That's where a lot of our complaints come from.
Have they done anything to mitigate traffic going over Hayden?
They have. They're just their arrival instructions rather than just giving a blanket, report a 3-mile left base runway 24. They'll actually say remain over Highway 95 in our left base runway 24. They're giving more instruction to pull away from the lake and from the houses and get them over the commercial district. They're coming from the east and same from the west.
So has most of the noise complaints come from local traffic in the pattern, or is it arrivals and departures?
I would say most of the complaints come from traffic pattern, the smaller aircraft doing touch and goes.
Okay. It's interesting to kind of have an opposite experience because it's anecdotal depending on where you are, but the experience I have is it's bigger. The jets that are coming in that flight pattern is I come to understand things more. That's kind of the path they're locked into. Yeah. And so they come that way, but when they do, it is quite loud, it's quite disturbing. Many times it's just the fire plant, so I can just kind of go whatever.
That's
But
another
not
thing,
all.
Brian, that the standard pattern without a tower for runway 24, if they're landing on that, would be to come in this way to do their base leg and they'd be going over your place. But if they route them up this way, they can come out here farther and make their approach without going over the high ridge there to south of Hayden Lake.
So Jim, I have a question for you. So how quickly are you going to pull this meeting together?
When time permits, I'm full-time too, so trying to get it together here within the next 2 weeks, I would say, if not sooner. I can get responses, we can stay on it. Keep in mind though, if we change patterns from one area and get moved to another area, we get the wing, so we have to get that equilibrium.
But that's more sparsely populated over there for now.
And it's lower generally, and so the planes are going to appear to be higher.
So I will keep you guys posted sooner than later.
Thank you, Jim.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thanks. All right.
So I have a quick question for guests, and then I don't mean it to make it into a longer thing. We're trying to break your record. But the decoupling issue, is that like pushed way far out, or is that still something that's?
It's still looming, but there's other solutions that we're looking at.
Okay.
Yeah.
Okay, but it's still in the loop then?
Yeah, at a minimum, the distance that would be decoupled or removed from the runway has been shrank to just the whole short area, essentially, of where runway 2 would go into 24. Okay. So, but there's a bunch, basically by doing taxiway Charlie, and then hopefully we're rolling right into a rehab of taxiway Alpha. That's pushing it further along the line where we can maybe look at doing a extension project, even if it's just a small extension. If we can get the runways a little bit longer at that end, we can do different taxiways, and we've actually gained runway without having to decouple. So there's definitely more ways to look at it.
Thanks.
Moving on to item C, input on agenda items for the next meeting by October the 2nd. And I wanted to add something onto this because it seems like we end up doing this anyway. We end up with kind of a general goal session around this topic. So I wanted to open it up to anybody in the meeting, anything on your mind that you might want to bring up that you might think would be appropriate for a meeting in the future. From the board or from the audience, now is the appropriate time to.
Tower tours of agenda item.
Okay. Anybody else?
We'll be working ourselves out of your job.
Locally. Okay, we'll put down tower tour. Anything on anybody else's mind? You're welcome to speak up. You're already being quiet.
Mr. Chair,
We're not keeping you awake.
Mr. Chair, I have a question.
Yes.
I was given an article saying that the Biden-Harris administration is giving more than $2 billion in grants to improve airport infrastructure across the US, and it mentioned the Coeur d'Alene Airport. Have you guys heard anything about millions of dollars coming your way?
Essentially, yeah, that's all part of the AIP program as a
Okay.
whole, with the feds. It was increased from roughly 3.2 to $4 billion that went out to airports. With the new reauthorization act this year, it puts an emphasis on general aviation airports. What you get a lot of the time is like the LAXs, Fort Worth, SeaTac. They soak up a lot of that money really quick, and a lot of GA airports are left scrounging, trying to keep their pavement surfaces nice and lighting and all that stuff. So that is one of the sources of funds to build the taxiway Charlie extension that's going through. There was a emphasis grant that we applied for, which we did not get, that was to basically increase sustainability on our infrastructure. So we had put a grant in application for adding LED lighting to the rest of the airport. So with our last project, 624 got LED lights. A lot of the lights on the north side of the airport are LED. We were looking to do LEDs on the small runway and the rest of the taxiways just to cut down on maintenance and make it a lot more efficient, essentially, and maintenance free. But we did not get selected for that grant. There were other airports that walked in front of us on that. But yeah, that is basically the main source of the AIP funds for all airports across the country.
Thank you.
Yeah, no problem.
Yes, I tell you, based on our designation, there were 4 tiers
Mhm.
of airports, and Spokane, for example, would be a tier 1.
Right.
And they just garnered a huge grant for redoing their taxiway out. But we are what, tier 4?
We're in tier 4. Yep.
So the pools of money available are different for each tier. And actually, we do quite well in the tier 4 category. But we certainly don't have the opportunities that say the tier 1 airports have to go out there and get the federal monies because they're larger airports with passenger traffic and cargo traffic, operating heavy aircraft. We're primarily general aviation airport, small aircraft for service and business jets we see coming down here. So, but we do, I think, a pretty good job.
We do pretty well. As a 139 airport, even though we're a class 4 or category 4, we still are in that 139 pot of money, which is really good. That's a different pot of money that, say, Sandpoint or St. Mary's or any of that they would pull from. So this is definitely the pot that we want to be involved with.
That question. This is in the nature of trying to define what might be a future topic for.
Yep.
I guess it would be helpful. In the past, when I've reviewed the 2 prior airport planning documents, what I've seen is when they do the projections on what your airport traffic's gonna be, it's based on some data, but modeling that's imperfect in terms of, exactly this airport is my recollection. They kind of infer it from data regionally, things like that, to get to projections about what will it be like in the next, time period. Has the airport improved upon its ability to capture data relevant to this airport, such that when the next airport plan update comes along, you're gonna have improved data set to work from to make those projections?
It will probably be our most precise planning effort that we've ever taken here. Absolutely. It's going to be a much larger planning document than has ever been produced. That's just exactly like you said, just the growth, the noise, the different studies that are going to happen, environmentals, noise studies. They're basically looking at all the demographics of what type of businesses can come to Coeur d'Alene. It's a document that could take, I mean, it's a year-long study to get it put together on our next master plan. So one thing that this airport has continuously done is exceed its master plan early. Normally a master plan document, I mean, you're good for at least 10 years. We have exceeded it within 5 years, almost 100% of the time by at least 23% on projections historically. So this area it's always seen a level of growth that is outpaced what the projections show on our planning documents.
So is it just that the airport itself is now capturing better real-time data about who's transiting in and out?
I would say so.
Yeah.
Basically seeing the type of client that is operating here, counting operations efficiently with different softwares that we have, just having different data centers on collection. Yep.
And then noise studies. A while back, I heard some mention of noise study. I mean, we're just getting going on kind of scoping that. Has that moved anywhere in terms of getting the noise study underway?
It won't until the master plan starts. That'll be a large element of the master plan study process. But when it does, it's going to be it'll be much more than just the standard, like the 150 is Jim was referring to. It'll be, they're going to bring it down basically to a 3D model style where we can input different aircraft. What does it look like if we had 737s in here? What does it look like if there's a bunch of Cessna 185s flying in here? And they can actually move the sound models and model it, map it for our area, which has never been done here on that scale. So you can actually direct the planning effort and what kind of businesses, what kind of traffic we want to attract based on how that noise affects the community. So different arrivals, I mean, they can play with all kinds of different stuff when we start getting into that level of planning.
So thank you. And with that information, I'm going to not make a specific recommendation. This is something for the next meeting. I just want to mull that over, but it was a recommendation, be in the nature of what can we as a board do to keep the public informed about what is it that goes into the plan. I'm just a little hesitant to try and say we should reach out and engage the public that immediately. Here's what a master plan is, but it's along that line. I think the public, the more that you work to make the public aware of what that's going to be before it gets underway, I think you do yourself a favor, actually.
If I could comment on that, the master plan itself, the board is really just an ancillary part of that whole process. The master plan itself, I believe, is conducted, by the airport system with and we're involved in the process, but as the master plan is developed, it is presented to the public in a series of public meetings. I remember the last roll down that I did. So in terms of keeping the public involved, I don't know, I would think the process right now is adequate in that regard.
They would be more involved than they ever have in the past. Basically,
But
What was that last part? I'm sorry.
they would be more involved than they ever have in the past. Essentially, with us expanding the scope of this master plan, I believe I was talking with JR with Ardura, and he said that we are going to have 2 to 4 public outreach officers that come with that planning force that will conduct these meetings. These are experts in how to talk to communities about traffic, how to talk about environmentals, talk to them about what you want to see at your airport. He said there's going to be no less than 10 public meetings outside of this room held in like a town hall session when they're gathering data for that new master plan.
additionally, leading up to the master planning process, the subcommittee that we put together, we hope to segue that into a more permanent feature of the board, to where we don't wait till we get to the master plan to say, well, what should we be thinking about? We can develop inputs into that process well in advance to say, okay, here's some things that the board airport administration, certain key members of the business community, the public, have developed as far as what we see as opportunities for the Coeur d'Alene Airport and present that in. So being that that committee is, part of it is board members here, and there will be feedback to this board. And part of the board's responsibility to provide information back to the public, that will be an opportunity to keep the public informed as well.
That's distinct from the northern.
No,
Or-
The subcommittee on the north side development, it's kind of a brainchild guess that I have, because, we got looking at what we have up there, and we realize, well, we should be thinking constantly of what might go in up there. And to add to that, I thought, why not just make this kind of a way to look at the entire airport? Because there are plans that Gaston has for the south side of the airport in terms of developing some more general aviation assets down here. Why not just encompass the whole thing and have it as an ongoing part of the board? So that we're always involved in that process, we're always carrying it forward, and then when we get to the master plan or during the airport administration, it stands to some of the input that they have to work with. And certainly by that point in time, if we're doing our job correctly, we've been interacting with the public, we should have some feedback that we would be able to incorporate into that as well.
So the subcommittee that was formed has a broader kind of scope. It's not just.
That's what we'd like to see it develop into. It's simply not just to say we're gonna draw a line at 64 and concern ourselves with things up here. So, we've talked about plans to, for example, develop the infield. For general aviation purposes, there's property down here by the gun club. And off the hangar that I occupy here, we've got 2 rows that are gonna be ready for hangar go. All those things would come into play the entire airport. So that you have a group that's actively engaged on an ongoing basis to say, okay, here's what we are now. What are some things we think we might be wanting to look at doing in the future? And it's just a way of being proactive. And like I said, it doesn't really have any authority to say this board's gonna direct you to what you're gonna do. It's just gonna say, well, you got input, we got input from certain members of the public, and we think among that group, we can come up with some pretty good ideas for the airport. Should be going with the property that it has, rather than letting it happen. Which I think a lot of airports, that's what happens. People come along and they want to build hangars, or they want to build FBOs, they want to have an aviation business, and so they start popping up around one another. And remember, the original plan for Avports was to stick a terminal over here, right in the general aviation population, and have access, through this area, which really for purposes of general aviation would have been kind of a disaster. Then you had, airliners mixing it up and sending the 150s go back and forth in Alpha taxi. That wasn't really a good approach. We just thought it's a better idea to say, okay, we know, what the strengths and weaknesses are in particular parts of the airport, where different things would be appropriate. It would be in the interest of the airport to have, and do it in a way so that we optimize the property that we have, and also could affect future opportunities to acquire property. So it's just kind of a group think that we have going forward. And again, it gives us an opportunity to interact with the public on it as we go along, so that there's no surprises like we had in the meetings where people read in the paper that they thought the airport was going to expand, and I realized at that point, we got kind of communication. Yeah, we need to be upfront with them. We need to utilize the relationship with the press, and this would be part of it. So we'll be able to say, we think that these opportunities exist. Not that they're going to happen, but if we were to develop these opportunities, this is what we would think it should look like on the airport. So,
I got a question for Jonathan. So the agenda for the advisory board, does it show up anywhere other than on the county's website?
No, it's we only have to post it physically and online, so it's just be on the website. It's up to grassroots to share it.
So
However, I do, as a communications guy, I send email blast out to the press in the future if you'd like that too.
well, I think maybe getting to Brian's concern about, having the public involved, if they know what we're doing here, if there's people that are interested, certainly the noise people were were interested and showed up here. I'm not sure how they knew about it, but we're supposed to be reaching out to the surrounding community as well as the airport. If to the extent that you can send it out to the press and they can do with it as they please, if they think it's newsworthy enough to put it in their notices, I think that would be good. And you know, there's certainly no sleight of hand here or any effort to veil what efforts we're undertaking. If they want to be here and provide public comment, we have the opportunity every time.
If I could just say one thing on top of that, I would strongly encourage, just from my strong social media background, that maybe doing some kind of campaign, because the airport does have their own Facebook page. I could partner with them with the county's page, and we could try to do a little campaign, whatever you all would like, from education to whatever you'd like to do. But it seems to hit a lot of people are on social media these days. Just for you all to consider.
We do publish the agenda on Facebook on the flyers.
I know.
I think the Airport Association.
But that's more of a sequestered community there, so.
So to the extent we can get it out, I mean, we're certainly not trying to hide anything. And I think getting the involvement, having an opportunity to deal with issues up front is good. So
Anybody else? Okay, I'm gonna move on to item 10, public comment. Second session of it. If anybody has anything to say, like I said, come forward, identify yourself, say your piece. I take that as a hard no. Item 11, move for adjournment.
Make a motion.
I'll second.
All in favor of adjourning the meeting?
Aye.
All right.